Good afternoon, Your Lordships. Before I would begin, I would like to ensure that if my voice is audible.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're audible.
Thank you. The council appears on behalf of the plaintiff in the case Laura versus Excel Telefilms Private Limited before the City Civil Court, Bengaluru, under Order 7 and Rules 1 and 2, Your Lordship. Proceeding with the statement of jurisdiction, Your Lordship, the council on behalf of the plaintiff submits that the memorandum of plaint under Order 7, Rule 1 and 2, read with sections 19 and 26 of the Civil Procedure Code before this Honorable Civil Court, Bengaluru, Your Lordship. The council would like to proceed with the statement of facts. Excel Telefilms company organized a reality show called The Back to Nature. 12 people from different walks of life were taking part in the show for a period of 12 weeks. The shooting was to take place in a remote, secluded and sparsely populated island called the Paradise Island. Laura, an upcoming singer and winner of Singing Sensation 2019, was also one of the participants of the reality show. In less than 2 weeks of the commencement of shooting, Laura developed symptoms of bacterial infection that was very much commonly found in Paradise Island. The doctor who diagnosed Laura were amazed that the rooms were not fumigated to avoid such risks. Laura was hospitalized when she Laura was hospitalized for the same, and when she developed acute laryngitis, she had to cancel her global tour, Your Lordship. So Laura instituted a civil suit against the Excel Telefilms before the Civil Court, Bengaluru, for negligence as she was under their care and custody. Laura quantified the damages at ₹1 crore and Excel Telefilms filed its written statement. The matter has been posted for your final arguments, Your Lordship. So the counsel for plaintiff would like to proceed with the issues in consideration, Your Lordship. The counsel for plaintiff have taken 4 issues. Those 4 issues are: firstly, whether the defendant is liable for negligence. Second is whether there is contributory negligence on the part of the plaintiff. Third one is whether the defendant can plead the general defenses of tortious liability. Fourth is whether the quantum of damages is justified. Counsel number 1 will be dealing with issue 1 and 2, Your Lordship, and counsel number 2 will be dealing with issues 3 and 4. So the counsel would like to proceed with issue number 1. Whether the defendant is liable for negligence. It is humbly submitted to this honorable court that the defendant has definitely shown negligence towards the plaintiff, Your Lordship. Since the defendant, being a company, has its own reputation, it has the responsibility of taking due care of all the facilities and surroundings provided to the contestants of the show Back to Nature. As observed, negligence means more than headless or careless conduct, whether in commission or omission. It properly connotes the complex concept of duty, breach, and damage thereby suffered by the person to whom the duty was owed. The defendant has shown negligence towards the plaintiff by not fumigating the rooms in the island and where the show was being organized, Your Lordship. So with relevance to this, the council likes to refer to the case of Overseas Tankship United Kingdom Limited versus Motsdogs Company Limited to establish the criteria that is required to hold the defendant liable for negligence. So these 3 essential elements of negligence that we are going to talk about today are firstly is the duty of care owed by the defendant. Second is the breach of that duty by the defendant. Third is the damage caused to the plaintiff pursuant to the breach of duty by the defendant, Your Lordship. So considering the first element of negligence, that is the duty of care the defendant owed towards the plaintiff, which is the prerequisite liability for negligence. In the case of Borehill versus Young, Lord Macmillan explained the term duty of care as a duty to avoid doing or omitting to do something which may have its reasonable and powerful consequences, causing injury to others, Your Lordship. The duty is owed to those to whom such injury may reasonably and probably be anticipated if the duty is not observed. In the instant case, the defendant organized Back to Nature, and as any prudent and reasonable person, it had the duty to ensure that the contestants were accommodated in humane conditions. So with respect to that, the duty of care, one more point that I would like to highlight is that duty of care is not contractual, but a mere obligation on the part of the defendant, Your Lordship. This was held in the case of Donough versus Stevenson. Since Paradise Island is a remote, secluded and sparsely inhabited island, Your Lordship, the defendant owed a duty of care to ensure that it was safe for the contestants who had to stay for 12 weeks on the island unconditionally. So, thirdly, one more point that I would like to highlight is that the defendant must be under the duty of care to not create any latent source of physical danger to the person or property of the third party whom he ought to reasonably foresee as likely to be affected thereby. This was extracted from the case of Rajkot Municipal Corporation versus Manjulben Jayantilal Nakum, Your Lordship. So the non-fumigation of the rooms was a latent source of physical danger to the plaintiff, which was reasonably foreseeable as bacterial infection was very much commonly found in the Paradise Island. Hence, the defendant is definitely liable for negligence, Your Lordship. In order
How do you connect the bacterial infection to any act or omission on the part of the company?
Indeed, Your Lordship. Here,
what is the connection? What is the connection?
Indeed, Your Lordship. Here the defendants have failed to perform the duty to care by non-fumigating the room, Your Lordship. They had to fumigate the room.
No, but you were also outside on the island. The bacteria is not merely available in the room. It is available outside in the natural habitat also.
Indeed, Your Honor. Here
there must be a causal connection.
Indeed. There's a direct and proximate connection, Your Honor. Where the rooms have to be fumigated, which would have reduced the risk of contracting the infection, Your Lordship. With reference to this, there's also this occupier's liability, which I'll be further mentioning in my arguments with respect to this, Your Lordship. So,
but she could have contracted this from outside the room also.
The facts are silent on that, Your Lordship. So here we would like to say that the defendant has breached his duty by not fumigating. And also he should have been more, if he had this option, he had to be more careful. He could have chosen any other location because bacteria was very much common in the island, Your Lordship. So he has failed to show the duty of care towards the plaintiff, Your Lordship.
All right.
Yes,
question is very simple.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Here is different from the outside environment.
Yes, Your Lordship.
12 hours they will be outside only. Only during night time they will be staying in the room because it is living in the nature. But the chances are more to come into contact with this outside, not inside the classroom. That is what the court wants, seeking clarification from you. So merely fumigating the room won't even prevent getting affected by the bacteria.
But definitely fumigation of rooms would have minimized the probability of her acquiring the risk because she had to stay in the accommodation for all her requirements. So she would have spent a good amount of time in the accommodation as well. So this would have definitely avoided the risk, reduced the risk of her contracting the infection, Your Lordship.
But they were all these participants were doing various tasks assigned to them as part of the competition, and their inability to do a task properly would have resulted in their elimination also.
Yeah, indeed, Your Lordship.
So that the room is only a small part of their area of activity where they would rest or sleep at night. There were other areas. I mean, how can you say that it is because of omission to fumigate that the bacterial infection has come? That's
Indeed, Your Lordship. The facts are very much silent about the 11 other participants. So here, presumptions wouldn't. I wouldn't like to put forth the presumptions, Your Lordship. So fumigation would have definitely reduced the risk of. This was also one of the probability where she could have avoided the contraction of the infection, Your Lordship. Venturing out has also been not laid down in the facts of the case. So here we are sticking on to the fumigation of the rooms where if they had fumigated the room, her probability of acquiring the disease would have definitely reduced, Your Lordship. So they have breached their duty of taking the basic amenity to the plaintiff, Your Lordship. So I would I would like to proceed with my argument, Your Lordship. Further, to establish whether there is a duty of care towards the plaintiff by the defendant, a test has been laid down in the case of Capero Industries Private Limited Company versus Dickman, Your Lordship. So those requirements to prove the existence of duty of care are reasonable foreseeability of the damage, proximate relationship between the parties, and that it is just and reasonable to impose such a liability on the defendant. Firstly, considering the reasonable foreseeability of the damage, the defendant should have taken the necessary precautions as a reasonable man would have in any order to prevent the contraction of the disease by the plaintiff, as the bacteria was very much commonly found in the Paradise Island, Your Lordship. So, them being the organizers had more duty to take care towards, more duty to had to show more duty to care towards the plaintiff, Your Lordship. The council would also like to emphasize on the fact of occupier's liability, that the defendants were in charge of, Your Lordship. The occupier of the premises is expected to reasonably foresee the danger to which the premises are exposed to the visitors, and therefore he is expected to take proper care to ensure that the visitors to the premises do not suffer any sort of injury. This was being taken from the case of Nitin Walia Minor versus Union of India, Your Lordship. As far as the criteria of reasonable foreseeability is concerned, the defendant must have the reasonable diligence of the consequences of conducting the show in a remote island. Secondly, considering the proximate relationship that exists between the parties, as they had this commercial arrangement between them. So the nexus between the parties are legally established, for which the defendant was under the obligation to show duty of care towards the plaintiff. Thirdly, the imposition of liability on defendant is just, fair and reasonable, Your Lordship. The duty of the defendant was to ensure the safety of the participants as well as the maintenance of their health, so that they being the organizers had the duty to look into the pros and cons of the show, Your Lordship. So on this general level, I would like to take up this case given by the High Court in Delhi, Your Lordship, that is the Association of Victims of Upahar Tragedy versus Union of India, wherein the negligence of the venue owners of the cinema hall resulted in the stampede which caused 69 fatalities by asphyxiation, Your Lordship. It was held that the venue owners were duty bound in the interest of the society to provide safe environment to the spectators or the viewers, Your Lordship. The crux of this matter here rested upon the contention by the spectators that they survived the tragedy, alleging that the incident could have been avoided had the owner of the venue taken certain necessary precautions. So I would like to rely upon that for the present instant case, Your Lordship. So the council submits that there's one more aspect where there is delay shown by the defendant with respect to the arrival of the medical team on the island after the plaintiff fell ill, Your Lordship. They took a longer time for the medical team to arrive on the island as soon as the plaintiff was diagnosed with certain symptoms. With respect to this, the defendant has not acted instantly when the plaintiff was in need of medical assistance, Your Lordship. So thus the defendant had the duty of care towards the plaintiff, for which they had to take precautions, which was important for maintaining the safety of the participants, Your Lordship. Considering the second essential element, that is the breach of duty, the council humbly submits that the defendant has breached his duty of care towards the plaintiff, Your Lordship. Breach of duty to take care takes place when the plaintiff has a right to rely upon the defendant's acts or omissions, and the plaintiff is entitled to such protection as laid down or prescribed by law, where the plaintiff is injured by a positive act and the omission on part of the defendant where the injury or harm is foreseeable by the defendant, he takes no steps to prevent it. This was held in the case of Heaven versus Pender, Your Lordship. So thus clearly the defendant has failed to perform his duty and thereby breached the duty of not providing safe environment to the plaintiff by not fumigating the rooms and taking necessary precautions, Your Lordship. With reference to this present scenario also, the government and other local authorities have not simply taken up to sanitize all the required areas on the regular basis, Your Lordship. It is to serve the purpose to keep the people in the safe environment so that the contracting of infection by coronavirus could be avoided, which has become very much common. So that is also very much...
There is a lot of difference between bacterial infection and viral infection.
Indeed, Your Lordship, but they are taking steps in order to.
It's different. What
Indeed.
Fumigation is different from what is
sanitization, Your Lordship. Yes. It's different aspects, but the general deduction of what they aim to.
You can't draw an analogy between a viral infection and a bacterial infection.
Indeed. But the steps taken were appropriate, required. Okay, I much obliged, Your Lordship.
You are talking about occupier's liability. It is when you occupy a premises, only the occupier's liability comes in. Am I right?
Indeed, Your Lordship.
So because the case laws which you cited also with reference to the cinema theatre, if I am occupying space, then the occupier's liability will be attractive. What about occupational hazard? It is a commercial activity. Occupational hazard. I know that I will be outside with the environment, living with the environment. So I know fully well. This is what normally we call it as the occupational hazard. So what is, in case of occupational hazard, what kind of duty is imposed on the plaintiff in this case?
Thank you for enlightening the bench, the counsel on that, Your Lordship. But as to occupational assault, the counsel would come back to it after the arguments, Your Lordship.
When?
No, as soon as I complete.
No, now you have to complete. Now your time is up.
No, Your Lordship.
You have to answer or not?
You
understand the question? Suppose I am entering into a commercial activity. Thereby I get some kind of a consideration, whether it is a monetary or not, whatever it is. But because of that, I am exposed to certain environment and I get some disease. That is what normally we call it as an occupational hazard. Working in a cement factory, working in an atmosphere, all these things. What kind of things the law says?
Indeed, Your Lordship. Here, occupational assault includes the relationship between that of an employer and employee. Here, it is that of an organizer and that of the participant, Your Lordship.
There is a commercial activity. Consideration.
Commercial activity, indeed, Your Lordship. So it is a general duty. It forms a general duty to take care. It's not contractual. Duty to take care is not contractual, Your Lordship. But it is general obligation on the part of the defendant to be shown towards the plaintiff, Your Lordship.
Knowingly well that you will be entering with the outside the world along with the 12 others, you are exposing yourself certain to risk. Is there any duty on the part of the plaintiff to take reasonable care about her oneself? That is a question precisely.
Pardon, Your Lordship. What?
Whether the plaintiff is having a reasonable duty to take care of herself, knowingly aware of the fact that she will be exposed to the environment, alien environment.
So, Your Lordship, here I would like to say the occupational hazards are for a longer period of time. Here she had acquired acute laryngitis for a period of 2 weeks after the commencement of the shooting.
Also, allergy is different from infection.
Yeah, indeed, Your Lordship.
Infection. Not it is only 3 weeks. That is 12 weeks period is 3 months. It is not 3 days or whatever it is. 3 weeks. That is 3 months. She will be exposed to a unknown alien environment. Whether the plaintiff should have taken reasonable care or not, that is the only simple question.
Reasonable care. She was not. She couldn't reasonably foresee her of contracting the infection, Your Lordship. That is what I would like to say. So considering the third criteria, the third element of negligence, damage caused to the plaintiff, the cause of action for negligence arose when the damage occurred to the plaintiff on account of the breach of duty by the defendant. The defendant is directly responsible for the plaintiff to acquire acute laryngitis in the island, as they had failed to reasonably foresee the consequences of existence of bacteria on the island. So this completes the first issue, where I would like to say that the defendant satisfying all the 3 essential elements of negligence is definitely liable for negligence, Your Lordship. So the counsel would like to proceed on with issue number 2, Your Lordship. So the issue number 2 is whether there was contributory negligence on the part of the plaintiff. The counsel humbly submits that the plaintiff did not show contributory negligence at any point of time during the entire process. The defendant alone is liable for negligence, Your Lordship. Just as actionable negligence requires the foreseeability of harm to others, contributory negligence requires the foreseeability of harm to oneself. So the person is guilty of contributory negligence if he ought to have reasonably foreseen that if he had not acted as a reasonable, prudent man, he might hurt himself. This was taken from the case of Johns versus Livox queries, Your Lordship. So with reference to this, the plaintiff, being a participant, had to rely upon the defendant, as she had no idea of the arrangements that she had to make on the island. The plaintiff could not foresee her contracting the infection. She could not foresee her coming in contact with the microorganisms, Your Lordship. So like any other ordinary man of prudence would have acted in the same way as the plaintiff did under the similar circumstances, Your Lordship. I would like to take up this case law of Grayson Limited versus Ellerman Line, Your Lordship. Lord Permoor said, "I do not think that the question of contributory negligence depends upon any breach of duty as between the plaintiff and the negligent defendant. It depends entirely on the question whether the plaintiff could reasonably have avoided the consequences of the defendant's negligence." So defendant, having himself the responsibility of organizing the show, failed to perform his duty of fumigating the rooms. So he couldn't, since the plaintiff could not have avoided the defendant's negligence as she was not aware of the contraction of disease, Your Lordship. So her silence with respect to the accommodation facilities do not confine to fumigation of rooms, but the facilities with respect to her physical discomfort she would have faced. So her silence cannot be deduced that she had relied upon the facilities of fumigation of rooms, as she was not reasonably she could not reasonably foresee her contracting the infection, Your Lordship. I would also like to rely upon this case of if the bench allows, the counsel would like to take 1 minute to round up with the issue, Your Lordship.
Yes, you can.
Thank you, Your Lordship. But the plaintiff is, I would like to rely upon this case of Sushma Mitra versus MPSRTC, Your Lordship. The plaintiff is usually not bound to foresee that the another person may be negligent unless experience of certain particular form of negligence to be common in the circumstances. So as any reasonable man does not mean any paragon of circumspection. And if most of the passengers have behaved in the same manner as the plaintiff did, it would not be right to hold that the reasonable man would have behaved in the same manner, Your Lordship. So here, as any prudent organizers would have made sure that the game show was organized is in a habitable place, Your Lordship. So any deviation from providing the safe and healthy environment to the contestants is definitely a breach of duty of care on the part of the defendant. So the plaintiff could have made her own arrangements. Since the plaintiff could have not made her own arrangements, she relied on the defendant's diligence and did not see the defendant's negligence, Your Lordship. So, and also the last point that I would like to be saying that the plaintiff cannot be blamed under the rule of last opportunity, as she was not the last person to reasonably foresee the contraction of the disease. But defendant had the first and last opportunity to ensure that the participants, as she acquired the disease within within 2 weeks since the commencement of shooting, Your Lordship. So the defendant had 1 week time extra to take required precautions. So, in conclusion, the counsel would like to say that the plaintiff cannot be held liable for the contributory negligence, but the defendant is completely responsible for the negligence, with respect to all the reasons stated above. Thank you, Your Lordship. I would like to hand over to my co-counsel.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Your Honor, before I begin, I would like to check if I'm audible.
Yeah.
You're audible.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is Counsel 2, appearing on behalf of the plaintiff, Ms. Laura. Your Honor, I will be addressing issues 3 and 4. Starting with issue number 3, whether the defendant can successfully plead the general defenses of tortious liability. It's most humbly submitted that the plaintiff seeks the answer to this issue in the negative, as the defendant cannot cover up its negligence by pleading the general defenses, namely vis major and voluntary non-fit injuria. Starting with the defense of vis major, which translates to act of God, there are three ingredients which are essential to constitute the defense of vis major, and the counsel for the plaintiff relies on the judgments of Wright versus Bushnell and Tennant versus Earl of Glasgow. The three ingredients that are essential to constitute the defense of vis major are: the occurrence should exclusively be due to natural causes, the occurrence should not be reasonably foreseeable, the result could not have been avoided, that is to say that the result was beyond the defendant's control. In the present case in hand, none of these three ingredients are satisfied. To elaborate, Your Honor, starting with the first ingredient of natural causality. In the present case, the plaintiff suffered injury due to two omissions of the defendant. Firstly, the defendant failed to choose an appropriate location to conduct the game show itself, which would not compromise the health and the life of the contestants. Secondly, even if they had to choose Paradise Island alone, the defendant failed to take into consideration the health and safety of the contestants again by not fumigating the rooms. Both of these omissions were not exclusively due to natural causes, but due to the defendant's omissions alone. Hence, the first ingredient of natural causality doesn't stand in this case. Coming to the second ingredient, which is foreseeability. In para 9 of the mood problem, Your Honor, it says the doctors who diagnosed Laura as having bacterial infection, that's very common in Paradise Island, were also amazed that the rooms were not fumigated in order to avoid such risks. This very fact denotes that the doctors were amazed to see that the rooms were not fumigated, denotes the possibility of contracting bacterial infection, and this denotes that this was foreseeable, this risk was foreseeable. Hence, the second ingredient of foreseeability also doesn't lie. Coming to the third and final ingredient of control. The defendant could have avoided the consequence by fumigating the rooms or by choosing a safer location to conduct the game show. Hence, it was very well within the defendant's control to avoid the consequence. Therefore, even the third ingredient fails. In conclusion, the defendant's actions and omissions do not satisfy the three ingredients of vis major, and therefore it cannot take the defense and is liable for negligence. Moving on.
Since the bacterial infection was a common occurrence in the island, do you think that the organizers ought to have had a medical team also present there,
Your Honor,
to
firstly,
take care of any eventuality that was likely to be precipitated?
Your Honor, firstly, they had to choose a safer location instead of having the risk first and then seeing that the risk can be taken care of. They should have tried to avoid the risk in the first place itself, Your Honor, by choosing a safer location.
It's true, but since this was chosen, do you think that they should have taken more precautions, like having a medical team at site?
Indeed, Your Honor, if they were at the compulsion of choosing this island alone, they should have had an onshore medical team that was present, Your Honor.
Yes. All right.
Your Honor, moving on to the defense of voluntary non-fit injuria. According to Salmond, voluntary non-fit injuria comes into play when the plaintiff voluntarily waives or abandons his right and therefore cannot have any claim over it. The contract that was entered by the plaintiff in this case with the defendant to take part in the reality show cannot be deemed as a waiver of the right to sue the defendant for its negligence, Your Honor. Her consent here is with respect to the risks that are inherent to the game show, and bacterial infection is not inherent to this game show, and hence it's not within the scope of her consent. To substantiate this, the counsel relies on the case of Nettleship versus Weston, where it was held that nothing will suffice short of an agreement to waive any claim for negligence. The plaintiff must agree expressly or impliedly to waive any claim for any injury that may befall due to the lack of reasonable care by the defendant. Therefore, in the present case, the contract does not connote the plaintiff's implied consent to any risk that could have been avoided by the defendant, Your Honor. It's also pertinent to note that in the cases of Woolbridge versus Sumner and Slater versus Claycross Company Limited, it was held that the consent that is relevant is not consent to the risk of injury, but consent to the lack of reasonable care that may produce that risk. The plaintiff's consent must be with full knowledge of the nature and extent of the risk that he ran. In the present case, Your Honor, the plaintiff did not consent to be injured by the defendant's lack of care. with regards to the nature and extent of the risk, the plaintiff consented only to be part of the game show and did not consent to the risk of the defendant's negligence. Apart from this, Your Honor, apart from entering into the contract, which does not connote any implied consent, the plaintiff's silence with respect to the accommodation facilities also does not attract the defense of voluntary non-fit injuria, as her silence did not signify her consent to any injury that was to be caused. The plaintiff was not aware of the nature and extent of the injury that was to occur, Your Honor. Hence, the contract that was entered by the plaintiff with the defendant and her silence with respect to the accommodation facilities do not attract the principles of voluntary non-fit injuria, and for these reasons, the defendant cannot plead the same. To conclude this issue, the defendant cannot plead any of the general defenses of vis major and voluntary non-fit injuria and is therefore liable for negligence. The counsel will now proceed to the fourth issue. If the counsel may, Your Honor.
Yes. Yes.
Much obliged, Your Honor. The counsel would like to take a moment, Your Honor. Issue 4. Whether the quantum of damages is justified. The counsel for the plaintiff seeks the answer to this issue in the affirmative. In this case of personal injury, the damages of ₹1 crore is justly quantified under the 4 heads of medical expenses, loss of revenue on account of cancellation of tour, loss of income, and pain and suffering. To explain the classification of heads under which damages is awarded in personal injury cases, the counsel relies on the case of Rajkumar versus Ajay Kumar and another. The heads of damages in personal injury cases are classified into 2, and they are pecuniary or special damages, which includes medical expenses and loss of earnings, which in the present case are the first 3 heads of the damages that the plaintiff has sought. And the second kind of damages is non-pecuniary or general damages, which includes pain and suffering, which in the present case is the last head. Now coming to the quantification under each head, starting with the pecuniary damages. The first one is medical expenses, which is quantified at ₹10 lakh. Your Honor, at this juncture, it is pertinent to note that according to clarification number 28, the plaintiff was hospitalized for 3 weeks. It's also pertinent to note that according to clarification number 29, upon her discharge, she was under medical supervision and was still administered medicines. Hence, bearing in mind the hospitalization, supervision, and medicinal charges, the counsel for the plaintiff has arrived at the just and reasonable sum of ₹10 lakh. Now, coming to the second head, that is loss of revenue on account of cancellation of tour, which is quantified at ₹50 lakh. The counsel here relies on the article Acute Laryngitis by National Center for Biotechnology Information, which is authored by Gunjan Gupta, who's a teacher at Indira Gandhi Medical College and Hospital, Shimla, and Dr. Kunal Mahajan, who's an interventional cardiologist. Your Honor, this article states that use of voice during laryngitis results in incomplete or delayed recovery. It recommends complete voice rest. In order to go on the global music tour, Your Honor, in the month of January 2020, it was essential for the plaintiff to prepare before the tour. We need to take into consideration that this was a global affair, which needs immense practice and preparation. Due to her illness, which was contracted because of the defendant's negligence, her practice sessions were curbed as she could not sing, and she had to cancel her global tour and forfeit her dream of making it global. The plaintiff has therefore lost significant revenue from the tour due to the defendant's negligence, and therefore she is justly quantified at ₹50 lakh. Coming to the third head, Your Honor, which is loss on income, and this is quantified at ₹15 lakh. It is important to note that the plaintiff's livelihood depended solely on her voice, and her voice was now affected due to her contracting acute laryngitis. And apart from the cancellation of the global music tour, which was already discussed, she endured loss on income from 2 other sources, Your Honor. The first one is from the game show Back to Nature, and the second one is income from other prospects. To discuss the former source, that is loss of income from the game show, according to clarification number 15, the plaintiff was assured of remuneration in consonance with the duration of her stay at Paradise Island. According to clarification 17, Duration of stay implied until the contestant's elimination from the show or their choice to quit. Hence, due to the negligence of the defendant, the plaintiff was not in a position to continue to be a part of the game show, and she had to exit early from the same according to clarification number 14. Due to this, she did not receive the assured remuneration following the second week of the show, that is by July 15th, owing to the defendant's negligence. The second and last source is loss of income from other prospects. It was held in the case of Ramesh Chandra versus Randhir Singh and others that the incapacity or disability to earn a livelihood would have to be viewed not only in presentia but in futuro on reasonable expectancies and taking into account deprival of earnings of a conceivable period. The game show was to end by September 22nd, 2019. And she was instructed by GMT Incorporation to keep herself free of commitments by the end of November 2019. Owing to her recovery, she was unable to work for those 2 months. Hence, she lost considerable amount of income from other job prospects. In total, Your Honor, the plaintiff lost her income since the second week of the game show, that is by July 15th, till the end of November 2019 for a total of 4 months. Therefore, the plaintiff justly claims damages of rupees 15 lakh towards her loss of income. Finally, Your Honor, coming to the non-pecuniary damages, which is the final head of pain and suffering, and the same is quantified at rupees 25 lakh. Pain and suffering involves both mental and physical aspects. Physical pain here is with respect to bodily pain and discomfort that the plaintiff endured during her illness and recovery, while mental pain is due to the trauma that was caused by the loss of occupation. It was held in the case of Huff versus Prince that intangible elements such as pain, anguish, grief, wounded pride, damaged self-confidence or self-esteem that are caused by the conduct of the defendant that are of the type that the defendant should reasonably have foreseen in tort cases cannot be said to be fully compensated for in an award for pecuniary losses. In the present case, since the plaintiff had to endure all the above intangible elements due to the conduct of the defendant, she is to be compensated for the same under the head of non-pecuniary damages, Your Honor. In the case of R.D. Hattangdi,
one clarification, Counsel.
Indeed, Your Honor.
In order to make a bridge, we have a third-party insurance. Third-party insurance. Hope you will understand that. So, who possibility to suggest go for third-party insurance? Whether the plaintiff should have gone for should have insured her voice or insured her foreign trip, or before going to the island, whether the defendant should have insisted to enter into a contract of insurance. Normally,
Your Honor,
when we go abroad, we have been insisted to enter into a medical insurance or policy or something like that. So that is foreseeability. Something happens in the major accident or any slip, any bone breakage or whatever it is. So,
indeed, Your Honor.
Who should have foreseen this? Whether the plaintiff or whose responsibility or duty to that you should have gone for a third-party insurance or whatever that is medical or all these things, or she is dependent on her voice. Therefore, she should have insured her voice, or she should have insured her foreign trip also. So, in this aspect, the plaintiff, whether the duty of the plaintiff to go for a third party means, then the claim of 50 lakhs rupees and loss of income may not fall on the defendant, but it will fall on the third party insurer, that is insurer. What is your idea about this?
Your Honor, since the facts are silent whether her voice was insured or not, the counsel.
I'm asking you a hypothetical question. Whose responsibility would have been it? Whether she should have gone for the insurance, or she should have been advised by the defendant to go for the insurance.
Your Honor, certainly the defendant should have advised her about it, because it was only possible for the defendant to foresee the risks at Paradise Island, being the organizer of the game show. As any prudent and ordinary reasonable person, the plaintiff was not in a position.
that is with reference to the general health. But with reference to particular thing, voice, and because her entire life is dependent upon voice. Many actresses they insure their beauty or nose or whatever it is like that. So it is whose duty is that?
Your Honor, we have to note that she's an upcoming artist and she hasn't made her mark yet, Your Honor. She's still an upcoming artist, and if she
don't go to the facts. I'm asking a hypothetical. Don't say don't say it is not given because in no way the third party insurer is no way connected with the case. I don't like this. Yeah, I'm seeking a clarification in such circumstances. Whose responsibility it would have been? How a prudent man, a reasonable man would have thought whether I should go for a insure or I should insist that the defendant should go for the insurer.
Your Honor, the plaintiff could have taken an insurance for her voice, Your Honor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
But indeed, Your Honor. In the case of R.D. Hattangdi versus Pest Control India Private Limited, it was held that when compensation is to be awarded for pain and suffering and loss of amenity of life, the special circumstances of the claimant have to be taken into account, including his age, the unusual deprivation he has suffered, the effect thereof on his future life. In the present case, the plaintiff was an upcoming artist, as already mentioned, and the winner of Singing Sensation for the year 2019. The incident on Paradise Island had a grave effect on her future prospects, Your Honor. The plaintiff right now has a secure fan base till another person would be crowned the winner of Singing Sensation 2020. The number of prospects would then reduce if and when a new star drew all the attention away from the plaintiff, thus affecting her income and her mental health. Hence, the pain and suffering of the plaintiff has been justly quantified at Rs 25 lakh. In conclusion, for all the above mentioned reasons, Your Honor, the damages of Rs 1 crore stands justified. Your Honor, the counsel will now proceed to the prayer.
Right.
Much obliged, Your Honor. Wherefore, in the light of facts stated, cases cited, issues raised, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, it's most humbly prayed before the Honorable City Civil Court of Bengaluru that it may be pleased to pass decree and judgment, 1. Declaring the defendant liable for negligence and directing the defendant to pay damages of Rs 1 crore. Also to pass any other order that the court may deem fit in favor of the plaintiff to meet the ends of equity, justice, and good conscience.
Thirdly, prayer is justified.
Your Honor?
Last line of the prayer is justified before a city civil court, which is not a court of equity.
Your Honor, the counsel is just mentioning the basic principles that the court
is not a court of equity. It is a court of law, city civil court.
Indeed, Your Honor. The counsel stands corrected and would want any other order that may deem fit in the favor of the plaintiff to meet the ends of justice and good conscience, Your Honor.
Can we award more than what you asked? More than 1 crore? Is it possible?
Your Honor, we are satisfied with this amount, Your Honor, with the damages.
Thank you.
It was an honor arguing before this honorable court.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
May I proceed, your lordships?
Yes. Yeah.
Much obliged. So I am Anusoumya and this is my co-counsel Kaushalya. The researcher of my team is Ms. Megha. We represent the defendant in the case concerning Laura versus Excel Telefilms. Your lordship, I will be dealing the first 2 submissions about negligence and contributory negligence, and then subsequently my co-counsel shall deal with the rest of the submissions regarding voluntary non-per injuria, vis major, and damages.
How much time will be taking? 22 minutes?
I shall argue for 22 minutes, and my co-counsel shall argue for another 21 minutes. If your lordship, are your lordships conversant with the facts of the case, or do I have to assist the court with the?
Yes, not necessary.
Much obliged to lordship. Can I
Can straight away come to the points.
To make it comfortable.
Can straight away come to the points.
Yes.
Okay. Much obliged, Your Lordship. So the first assumption is that the defendant was negligent in its was not negligent in its actions. So the essentials of negligent was established in the case of Poonam Verma versus Ashwin Patel, and they are legal duty to exercise due care, breach of the said duty, and consequential damages. The council shall address each of the requisites severally. Firstly, with regard to the duty of care, Your Lordship, in the present case, there was a general duty of care towards all the contestants, and this had been made certain with the help of the contract, which was indicative of general obligations. However, the plaintiff has perceived a specific duty of care for herself and claims the defendant was in violation of the same. And so, the absence of a specific duty of care can be verified using the Caparo test, which was established in the case of Caparo Industries versus Hickman. And the test comprises of three main questions, namely, was the risk of injury or harm reasonably foreseeable? Was there sufficient proximity between the parties? And is it fair, just, and reasonable to impose a duty of care? Firstly, with regard to the reasonable foreseeable nature of the harm, Your Lordship, Paradise Island was a remote, secluded, and sparsely inhabited island, and so the risks are highly probable. However, to foresee each and every form of risk and to provide protection to the plaintiff against the same is not reasonable, and it's not really foreseeable as well. Secondly, the contract was indicative of only general obligations, Your Lordship, and so owing specific duty of care would be something that is outside the realm of the contract. And so there was no sufficient proximate relationship between the parties to the defendant who owes specific duty of care to the plaintiff. Thirdly, owing to the unreasonable foreseeable nature of the harm and unproximate relationship between the parties, it is fair, just, and reasonable to impose a liability, to impose a duty of care on the defendant. Having said this, the test has been met with in the present case, and so it has been substantiated and proved that there has indeed not a specific duty of care to the plaintiff alone. If you're, may the council proceed to the next credential of negligence?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. The next credential of negligence is the breach.
Relax and do it. Relax. We will give you ample time. Don't do it. Go ahead according to your plan. Go ahead.
So the next credential of negligence is the breach of duty of care, Your Lordship. In the present case, as mentioned earlier, the defendant had fulfilled the existing duty of care. There has been a general duty of care in the first place, and the defendant had fulfilled the general duty of care by providing accommodation and several other basic amenities required for the stay in the island to all the participants. And since there is no specific duty in this first place, the plaintiff cannot claim a new issue of a breach of duty of care because there was no specific duty of care in the first place. And moreover, Your Lordship, in the case of Blake versus Galloway, it has been held that a breach of duty of care in such circumstances will only be established where there has been recklessness or very high degree of carelessness, or that it was caused deliberately, that is with the intent to cause harm. But when aligned with our case, it can be clearly foreseeable that the defendant had fulfilled its general obligations by providing basic amenities and consideration to the participants. Hence, there has neither been recklessness nor very high degree of carelessness. And moreover, it can be very well said that the defendant had acted as a reasonable person in the sense that, according to Winfield, a reasonable man is placed into the shoes of the defendant at the time of the alleged breach of duty of care. Thus, if a defendant is a motorist, it is asked how much care the reasonable motorist would have taken. And if the defendant is a golfer, the question comes as how much care would the reasonable golfer would have taken. And in the present case, this is all the care that a professional, a host would have taken. And in a place like Paradise Island, and not any general location shooting spot.
It was not a very attractive tourist spot. That is what paragraph 2 says. Paragraph 2 says, was not a very attractive tourist location. You selected that location to have a hassle-free shooting. So therefore,
and also sparsely inhabited.
Yes.
Sparsely inhabited. So inhabitants also do not prefer.
Your Lordship, but risk is everywhere in Earth. Everywhere. There is risk everywhere and anywhere. So when shooting a commercial show, we are bound to take risk. And moreover, this is all that the defendant could have provided.
Are you taking risk with this? Risk with the honorable judges? No. You are arguing on you are not taking. You are taking risk. Risk is everywhere. Are you arguing your case?
I am arguing my case, Your Lordship.
Yes, an argument we have to decide the case. Am I right? So where is the question of risk there?
Your Lordship.
Risk is everywhere. When you plan certain things, you can eliminate risk, minimize the risk.
Minimize the risk, mitigate the risk, and we cannot choose to increase the potential risk. That is what the defendant had done in the present case.
So risk is everywhere. How to minimize the risk? That is a duty.
Yes, indeed, Your Lordship.
That you are not addressed.
Your Lordship, in the present case, by fumigating the accommodation, the defendant could not have possibly reduced the risk of her contacting bacterial infection in the sense that it was prevalent throughout the island. So, providing fumigation would not substantially reduce the risk, and moreover, fumigation is volatile, penetrating, and toxic chemicals are included in fumigation. And moreover, fumigation is very commonly used in pest control and animal husbandry, where there is very less human exposure. And moreover, in a place like Paradise Island, complete safety precautions cannot be guaranteed. And when substantiated with the case of Morris, which is Hurtlewood, it's been stated that in this case, apart from cases where he may be able to rely on an existing practice, it is the duty of the professional in considering whether some precaution should be taken against the force.
The last word. Not used correctly and safely. Fumigation is not safe, provided if it is not used correctly and safely.
Indeed, Your Lordship. And moreover, the
should have been done 3 days before. That is a safety measure. So what the highlighted portion is itself says, if not used correctly and safely.
Indeed, Your Lordship.
So fumigation itself is not blamed, but use of the same is blamed.
But Your Lordship, considering the extraordinary nature of the Paradise Island, complete safety precautions
before 3 days. Before 3 days, so that the humans can occupy the person occupy the room. That is a precaution, isn't it?
Indeed, Your Lordship. However, the risks of the fumigation outweigh the benefits of fumigation. The disadvantages, it can be seen in many manuals and handbooks about fumigation published by US Department of Agriculture, by Food and Agricultural Organization, that the benefits are around 4 points, whereas the disadvantage of fumigation outweighs the benefits. It's more than 2 or 3 pages, which clearly indicates the disadvantages of fumigation. And moreover, the complete risk of the fumigants and the chemicals cannot be cancelled out from the place. The plaintiff will always be subject to risk. Having said this, the counsel contends that the defendant did not breach the duty of care since there was no breach in the first, since there was no duty of care in the first place. Moving on to the third credential of negligence, consequential damages. Your Lordship, there are 2 links to this argument. First one is causation, and the next one is remoteness. So, with regard to causation, Your Lordship, the causation is proved through the application of but-for test, which means that if the damage would not have resulted but for the defendant's wrongful act, it would be taken to have been caused by the wrongful act. And as contended by the medical team, the bacterial infection was very common on the island. Therefore, the council humbly submits that despite the alleged negligence of the defendant, the contraction of bacterial infection, its consequent development into acute laryngitis and the consequent injuries would have occurred anyways because she was exposed to the risk through general environment. And there is a negligible chance that it was the defendant's fault for her contacting the infection, as the plaintiff was already exposed to the risk.
A stitch in time saves 9. A stitch in time saves 9. So, quick medical attention would have drastically reduced the injury.
Your Lordship, the defendant did act as a reasonable person in the sense that as soon as Laura started showing symptoms of
a medical camp was not there. A medical camp was not there. Not only for the contestants, for the crew members who are shooting the reality show, there is no medical camp or first aid camp. The facts are about it.
Your Lordship, the medical...
Yes, go ahead.
The medical team may have not been in the island. However, there is nothing that is stated in the proposition which denotes that Excel did not provide emergency first aid to Laura while medical team was brought to the island. So the facts are silent about the issue, and it's very well postulated that Excel could have done a lot of emergency care required for Laura's. And moreover, as soon as the injury happened, the Excel called the medical team as soon as possible, by which it acted as a reasonable person.
But it says it took some time. Para 9 says it took some time.
That is because owing to the remoteness of the island, that is the best possible thing and reasonable thing the defendant could have done.
Must have forced it. Yes, go ahead, please.
If you had been accompanied by a medical team, it would have been better and would have been provided immediately.
Indeed, Your Lordship. Your Lordship had correctly pointed out the same. However, it can be said that the facts are silent about the issue as to whether there has been a medical team or there has not been a medical team, in the sense that there could have been a medical team consisting of general physicians who would have called in for specialists of dermatologists or skin care specialists that way.
No, the facts are not to that effect.
Indeed, Your Lordship. The facts are not indicative of the presumption that Excel did not have a medical team. And at the same time, the facts are not indicative of the fact that there has been a medical team. So we cannot...
Facts indicate that there was no medical team. That is why a medical team was called in after a few days.
But the medical team could have been specialists. And there is nothing in the facts that proves the defendant did not do anything to prevent emergency measures. So moving on to the second limb of the argument. So having said this, it can be very well established that the defendant was not the proximate cause for the injury of the plaintiff. And having said this, the counsel would like to move on to the second limb of the argument, that is the remoteness of injury of the plaintiff. And Your Lordship, in the case of Overseas Tankship Limited versus Miller Steamship Company, the findings that the damages were foreseeable was reached on the following consideration. And they are: there was a real risk, although remote. The risk was greater in sense. Reasonable man would have known the gravity of the risk, and action to eliminate risk presented no difficulty. And so firstly, there are, as mentioned earlier, there are risks everywhere, and classifying them as real risks and unreal risks seems very surreal, Your Lordship. And secondly, the risk was greater in sense, indeed not, in the sense that acute laryngitis and bacterial infection were self-limiting, and they were not of any grave or intense nature, unlike cancer or diseases like that. Thirdly, a reasonable man would have known the gravity of the risk. Indeed not, again, in the sense that a reasonable man would not know the gravity of a bacterial infection developing into acute laryngitis, which would make the defendant cancel the whole of her global tour, the gravity of the injury was not reasonably foreseeable, and it could not have been foreseeable by a reasonable man also. And thirdly, as mentioned earlier, rather than difficulty to eliminate the risk, it can be termed as hazards to all the contestants, in the sense that fumigating the accommodation could have been a hazard for all the contestants, which served as a difficulty in the first place. That was the reason the fumigation was avoided. And having said this, the council would like to add on to the fact that the defendant had the global music tour in January 2020. And she contacted bacterial infection around July 2nd week, and she could have very well recovered by the end of August, which means that she had more than 5 or 6 months before going to the tour. Therefore,
recovery is not in her hands.
Your Lordship, but
recovery. You cannot put a limit on the time required for a person to recover from an illness. One person X may recover, X may recover early, Y may not recover that fast. Depends on a lot of other.
But however, laryngitis is basically self-limiting, and the duration is less than 2 weeks. The recovery depends on the people. However, the diseases are the same. The disease, the nature of the disease, acute laryngitis, it could have been only for 2 weeks, and it is very well mentioned the clarifications as well that Laura did recover and was discharged from the hospital after 3 weeks of medication, and she's all right now. So there is no reason to claim it.
She had to continue medical help even after her discharge.
Your Lordship, she was still under medication, in the sense that medication indicates tablets or injections, but that it can be very well postulated that it couldn't have affected the whole of the global music tour. And it seems to the council that the plaintiff was just indeed taking advantage of the financial capabilities of the defendant by claiming damages of 1 whole crore for a disease like acute laryngitis.
You don't understand class. Damages has to be justified, countermeasure, that they argue. So don't say that they are taking advantage of these situations. Once disease is over, recovery thing is, that is what the Lordship pointed out. It depends upon the man-to-man or individual cases. Yes, in cases of operation, we call post-operative care. Post-operative care. For some people, it will be 2 days. Some people, it will be 2 months. The bone should join. Suppose if you are having a surgery in the bone, if for some it will join in 2 days. Some people, 2 months. What's your response to that?
But however, the majority of the cases has to be taken into account, in the sense that acute laryngitis to most of the people has been cured within 2 weeks. So it can be very well, and moreover,
this is aftermath. After that, she has to go for complete voice rest. That is the problem. The disease is cured within two weeks. No problem with that. But voice rest is needed. Even in your highlighted thing, that is what.
If that was the case, then the defendant would not be liable for the same, in the sense that the defendant was not the proximate cause of the whole of her injuries.
Because of the infection, the voice rest is not necessary. Only because of the infection, voice rest is necessary.
But however, I presume that
the proximate, that is the connection. Infection, voice rest. That is the.
And she is a singer. And for a singer, voice is the most important thing. The quality of the voice has to be restored before she would be able to sing the way she is expected to.
Indeed, Your Lordship. However, there is time from August to November or around December, during which she can take the voice rest, and it cannot be for more than a year or 2.
It is not given in the facts. That is not given in the facts.
Your Lordship,
let us not argue on presumption. Let us not argue
Facts.
Based on the voice rest,
Yes,
the other person has cancelled that contract. Because of that, they has incurred heavy loss. We'll stick to that.
Yes, Your Lordship. However, the loss is
The doctors are advised voice rest. Because of that reason, the other contractor, the GMT, they have cancelled the contract. So what is it? Because of that only, they are asking for 50 lakhs.
But however, the cancellation must be on reasonable grounds and must be on foreseeable grounds. That is what
We are not party to these things, so we cannot say the cancellation must be reasonable or not. The GMT is not a party to this case. So how can we that should be reasonable or not, the cancellation? The general understanding is because of the voice test, the GMT has cancelled the international tour. Very well. There.
Facts say that. The facts are to that effect. The facts are to the effect that the tour was cancelled because of this.
Indeed, Your Lordship, that is the reason the council is contending that there is no proximate, there is no, the damages are too remote in nature, in the sense that the voice rest would have been possible for so much time, and as mentioned earlier, owing to the following grounds, the damages are too remote in nature, and having said this, all three credentials of negligence have been met with.
According to you, you could not have foreseen that laryngitis, contraction of a disease like laryngitis could have resulted in losing a contract with GMT.
Your Lordship, the council, indeed, Your Lordship.
You could not have foreseen the consequence of loss of contract due to this disease.
Indeed, Your Lordship, we could not have foreseen the loss of contract due to the whole of the acute laryngitis and bacterial infection. And I know that my time has expired. May I be of further assistance by asking another 2 minutes of your court's time?
Yes, 2 minutes, yes, you can have.
Having said this, all three credentials of negligence have not been met with in the present case. Therefore, the consequential damages are not actionable, and the defendant was not negligent in its actions. Assuming arguendo that the court finds the defendant negligent, the counsel would like to avail the defense of contributory negligence, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, in the contributory negligence means that the plaintiff failed to take reasonable care of their own safety, which was the material contributory factor to their death or injury. And in the case at hand, Laura remaining silent about the supposed inadequacies contributed to her injuries. In case she had spoken out, the reasonable precautions to her health and to her discomfort could have very well been taken care of. And moreover, the plaintiff cannot contend that the defendant had the last opportunity and missed it, in the sense that the defendant fulfilled all he could to mitigate the damages by calling for the medical team as soon as she developed rashes, redness, and swelling and everything. And moreover, in the case of Jones versus Livos, it stated that in order to that they say they must take into consideration others being negligent. You can use it and say we are not accepting negligence, but rather saying that plaintiff's act of remaining silent and expecting everyone around her to be reasonable is unreasonable. However, we have been reasonable, Your Lordship, but the plaintiff being unreasonable cannot claim the others to be reasonable. And moreover, in the case of Shushma Mitra, which is Madhya Pradesh State Transport Corporation, there has been a test which may I take another minute to sum up my arguments, Your Lordship?
It will reflect counsel's time. It reflects counsel time. We can be lenient, but it will reflect on your co-counsel time.
In that case, the counsel would like to submit my argument saying that the defendant was not contributory negligent, and however, the plaintiff was contributory negligent to the damages, and the damages should have been apportioned accordingly. It was a pleasure arguing before this honorable court of law.
Okay.
Fine.
Can I proceed, Your Lordships?
Yes.
I am the co-counsel of the defendants, that is XLTV. I shall be dealing with the third issue concerning voluntary non-fit injuria, fourth issue concerning vis nature, and fifth issue concerning damages. With the permission of this court, may I proceed to my submissions, Your Lordships?
Yes.
Much obliged, Your Lordships. So continuing the argument of my co-counsel, that is, it was held in the case of Sushmita Sen versus Madhya Pradesh Road Transport Corporation that the situation has to be taken into consideration. In the present case, the plaintiff was sitting in a bus and she has had her hand outside the window. So it is reasonable for her to have it outside if it was a rural place, whereas it is not if it was an urban place. So the situation has to be given importance, is what the council is trying to say, Your Lordships. So drawing parallel from this case, the present case, it would be like, the council would like to state that the Paradise Island was of such nature that there was special circumstance, and that is why the defendant had acted in that way. Coming to the argument of voluntary non-fit injuria, the council would like to submit that in the case of Smith versus Baker, it was stated that harm suffered voluntarily does not constitute a legal injury, and then a man cannot complain of a harm that he has subjected himself with the knowledge of his free will. So, Your Lordships, in the present case, the plaintiff very well knew that the shooting was to take place in an island which was remote, secluded, and sparsely inhabited. And moreover, the signing of the contract shows that she freely and voluntarily agreed to expose herself to the risk in the island. However,
there was no contract. The contract signed. The contract is not. Where is the contract? The contract will come. Cautious liability will not come.
Even if we are taking,
show me one word. There is a signed contract. Is there in the entire thing?
Your Lordships, it was stated in the clarification page. The researcher will be sharing it now, that there was a contract between XLTV and Miss Laura, Your Lordships.
What are the criteria? What are the stipulations in the contract?
The stipulations of the contracts were with respect to general obligations and not specific obligations, Your Lordships.
What is the general and specific obligations regarding this particular case?
Your Lordship, general obligation is giving accommodation and basic amenities like that, whereas specific obligation is what the defendant is asking for, that is to protect Laura's voice specifically. The defendant cannot foresee every person's risk and protect them against it, Your Lordship.
General obligation will also come in there, that is preventing the bacterial infection, not protection of voice. Protection of voice is specific, I agree with that. That is remote. But we are concerned about infection of the bacterial infection is a general liability.
Your Lordship, even with respect to the bacterial infection, the defendant did provide basic amenities and they cannot be held liable for not fumigating the rooms because the risks of fumigation are more than the benefits, Your Lordship, given the circumstance of the island, Your Lordship.
Question is very simple. Taking care of bacterial infection is general liability or specific liability? Question is very simple.
Your Lordship, that would again,
right to health or health care general, or right to give certain medicines at an affordable price specific?
Your Lordship, it can be, it can come under general obligations, but it has to be noted that she had come voluntarily, Your Lordship. It was.
Suppose I am voluntarily working in a civil site. It is in a construction.
Yes,
whether
Your Lordship.
the contractor has to give me helmet or not.
Your Lordship, yes, Your Lordship.
The contractor to give me an helmet, give me a gloves, give me a boots, rubber boots, so that my will not be affected by the cement. whether that is a general liability or not.
Yes, Your Lordship, but it has to be noted that the relationship Your Lordship is talking about is a contractor one or a employer one, whereas in the present case,
whatever it is, you are not addressed the issue of they plainly raise the issue of occupier's liability. That point has to be addressed. And second thing is whether the question revolves around whether it is providing medical facilities or providing taking preventive measures for the bacterial infection is general liability or a specific liability. Issues are very simple. Please address on this issue.
Your Lordship, the Council would like to state that even though the fumigation may come under general obligations, but there is justification for the acts of the defendants that the way they acted was reasonable, Your Lordship. Because of the extraordinary nature of the island, they could not have really done anything. And moreover, the damages being claimed for acute laryngitis is too remote. They could have only...
Your argument is like that. We are not responsible for the crippling. We are only responsible for polio.
Your Lordship, even if it comes to the defense of occupier's liability, there is still assumption of risk, Your Lordship, that the plaintiff did take here.
The voice is affected because of the bacterial infection. Whether that is a general liability or a specific liability. My question still you have not answered.
Your Lordship, it has to be seen that it is too unforced, it is too remote for the defendant to see that she will develop acute laryngitis. They could have foreseen bacterial infection maybe, but acute laryngitis is too...
What precautions have been taken? That's the problem.
Your Lordship, the facts are silent on that matter, but then
still my question is whether it is general liability or a specific liability.
It was under general liability, Your Lordship.
Proceed, that's all. Proceed.
With that, the Council would like to submit that the plaintiff had accepted the contract and she had even come on to the show and inhabited there. And even after finding the accommodation inadequate, like supposedly inadequate, she had still chose to remain silent. Had she raised her voice back then, there could have been something done by the defendant, but the plaintiff chose to remain silent. Therefore, this shows that she had knowledge and she acted upon that knowledge, and therefore she came to the island with the knowledge, and her conduct also implies to incur the risks that come on with it. Therefore, it is stated that the defense of voluntary non-fit injuria holds good, Your Lordship.
Voluntary non-fit injuria requires...
Yes, Your Lordship.
You to show that she had knowledge of the risk involved.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Did you make her aware of any risk?
Your Lordship, it is a reasonable person before coming to an island would do basic research and then would agree to come onto the island. And that is what defendant had expected on the part of Miss Laura as well. Whereas Miss Laura had not done anything to prevent herself. Moreover, even after coming, she had chose to remain silent, Your Lordships.
That is too much to expect from a participant, that she should conduct research, find out there was a risk and all that. It is you who should have done the research and found out whether it was safe or not for conducting this kind of an exercise.
Your Lordship, even if not for the bacterial infection, it's pretty common, and the plaintiff does not need to have a lot of research to do in order to take preventive measures, Your Lordship. Once she had not taken preventive measures, and even after coming, she participated for 2 weeks, Your Lordship. She was fine for 2 weeks. And after that, she had to remain silent when she found the accommodation to be inadequate, Your Lordship.
Yes.
So moving on to the third issue concerning Act of God. Yes, Your Lordship.
Acts are different. It is one thing to say the facilities are not adequate. Another thing is to say no facilities at all. So the facilities, instead of one pillow, they have given. They are not given with the pillow. That is what normally say. but the quality of the accommodation is different. Facility of the accommodation is different from quality of the accommodation. But we are talking about the quality of the accommodation, not the quality of the accommodation.
Your Lordship, the council would like to submit that the defendant did provide a good accommodation, and it has to be seen that Laura was far from impressed with the facilities, with the accommodation. That could be her own perception as well. The other participants could not have.
You would have provided her the ordinary mattress. She would have expected a home mattress. That is a different. That is what facilities. She would have expected home pillow or whatever it is, air conditioned room. That is facility. But we are talking about safety measures, not facilities. Safety measures like sanitation. The bathroom must be cleaned, must be kept clean. Whether it is ordinary bathroom or it is a Western toilet, that is not the question. That is what facility. But the toilet must be kept clean. That is what safety, sanitation.
Yes, Your Lordship.
And the safety.
Yes, Your Lordship.
I rightly agree with you. Facilities may differ from person to person. I may need to sleep, you may sleep with one pillow. That is a facility. But
Yes,
safety, you cannot compromise with the safety. Duty.
Your Lordship, it has to be seen that the defendant would have provided basic necessities in the accommodation. The only thing that they did not do was fumigation. And the reason because of they had not done fumigation has already been explained. That is, it had more risk, Your Lordship. It created more risk to the participants.
But you should have done it before 3 days. No problem would have taken place.
Your Lordship, the special circumstance has to also be taken into consideration, Your Lordships.
What is a special circumstance? Nothing. Everything is planned.
No, Your Lordships, in normal circumstance, the person who is fumigating has control over the environment around him, whereas here it was not of that nature, Your Lordship.
Precautionary measures, preemptive measures, prophylactic effect. How many words are there for duty to take care?
Yes, Your Lordship, but then the defendant had fulfilled the general duty of care that they had owed to Miss Laura, Your Lordship.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Moving on to the third issue concerning vis major, it was held in the case of Ramalinga Nadar versus Narayana Reddyar that in order to establish act of God, it has to be direct, sudden, and a force of nature, and then it should not have been foreseeable, but if foreseeable, could not have been prevented. So the council would like to submit that firstly, it was directly caused by a bacteria and not the supposed negligent actions of the defendant. And it was sudden, as in after coming to the island, she had started developing the symptoms only after 2 weeks. So which shows that it was not sudden as well. Moreover, coming to the operation of nature, as it was caused by a bacteria, it was an operation of nature, and though in the present case it could have been foreseen, but the point is that it could not have been preventable, Your Lordships, because the bacteria was prevalent in the general environment as well. Therefore, the council would like to submit that the development of acute laryngitis from bacterial infection is too remote also, Your Lordship. Therefore, it was an act of God, Your Lordship.
The fact says after 2 weeks. The fact says after 2 weeks.
It's written in less than 2 weeks, Your Lordship.
So, then what? You said it is after 2 weeks only she picked it up. But the facts are less than 2 weeks.
Your Lordships, the council would like to say that it is around 2 weeks then. So it was not sudden in that.
After 2 weeks is different illegally and less than 2 weeks is differently legally.
Yes, Your Lordship, but less than 2 weeks also means that she did not contract it as soon as she went to the island, Your Lordship. Only then it will be.
What is the duration of the bacterial? Because you are citing so many scientific data regarding the human infection. What is the duration for a fungal infection, for a viral infection and bacterial infection? What is the duration?
Your Lordship, fumigation is generally done for pests.
I'm not talking about fumigation. What is the incubation period? What is the time for a viral infection, a fungal infection, and a bacterial infection? What is the duration?
It depends on the
viral infection. I'll help you. Viral infection, it will, for example, it will take 3 to 4 years to find out whether it is viral or bacterial. Fungal infection, how many days? Bacterial infection, how many days? Because we are heavily relying upon scientific data.
Your Lordship, the Council would like to say that
bacterial infection is with reference to forming of clusters. 2 will become 4, 4 will become 8, 8 will become 16, 16 will become 32. It is not like viral infection. Bacterial infection is different.
Yes, Your Lordship, the bacterial infection is different, and that is why it was not preventable by the defendant as well, Your Lordship.
So don't use the word less than 2 weeks or more than 2 weeks. That will not
yes, the council stands corrected, Your Lordship. Moving on to the final issue concerning damages. This will be done in 4 contentions. Firstly, regarding medical expense, it is stated that the defendants had called the medical team as soon as possible and had acted on the right time, and therefore they had even hospitalized her and had which it can be assumed that they had paid her bills. So the plaintiff cannot come upon later and ask for a damages worth such a huge amount, such as 10 lakhs for acute laryngitis, Your Lordship. Acute laryngitis is not an illness which requires so much of medical supervision. As Your Lordship had stated, it requires voice rest and such things. So it is not reasonable for them to ask for damages worth 10 lakhs, Your Lordships. Moving on to the second contention relating to loss of revenue on cancellation of TOR, it has to be checked whether the defendant's supposed negligence was the proximate cause. Where in the present case, it is not reasonable to assume that the defendant would know of all the future commitments of all the participants in the show, Your Lordships. And therefore, it is unjust and unfair to ask them to pay for the cancellation as it would seem remote of a consequence in their perspective. Coming on to the third issue concerning loss of income, it is stated that when assessment of damages is done, only strict legal obligations have to be taken into consideration, and only strict legal obligations have to be taken into consideration. In the present case, it can be seen in clarification 15 that Laura was also given a remuneration for her stay on the island. And moreover, the plaintiffs have already claimed a huge amount worth 50 lakhs on account of cancellation of TOR itself. Then why are they claiming again 15 lakhs under the head of loss of income? Wouldn't that all come under one head itself, Your Lordships? Coming on to the fourth issue concerning pain and suffering, it has to be noted that acute laryngitis, being a self-limiting illness, it can be treated with a rest and a short duration of time compared to other serious illnesses. So there is not much pain and suffering that the singer had to undergo. With that, I conclude my submissions. Do your Lordships have any queries to make?
No, for me, no.
Much obliged.
No further queries.
Much obliged, Your Lordships. So I'm moving on to the prayer.
One question: whether we can give something like 50 lakhs or 25 lakhs or no compensation at all, no damages. So you are all in medical acceptance, you met it, so she wouldn't have incurred. Are you ready to reimburse the actual medical expenses, or you are not liable to pay any damages at all?
Your Lordships,
you are not liable to pay 10 lakhs. That's one issue. I am not liability at all to pay any, even not even a one rupee. Which argument you are taking? Which argument you are?
Can I take a minute to answer Your Lordship's query, Your Lordship?
Oh, please.
Yes.
Your Lordship, the defendants do agree to pay for the medical expense only for the bacterial infection if the court has not
Kindly read last line of para 12
of
the compromise. Yes. That the damages are not being enforceable at all. No liability could be passed upon. So your argument goes sidetracked. You are ready to pay. You are ready to pay some actual. So you accept liability.
No, Your Lordship, the council would again like to say that
one thing to accept limited liability or no liability.
No liability, Your Lordship. But if the court does not take the okay, Your Lordships, I'll proceed with the prayer. Wherefore, in the light of facts stated, cases cited, issues raised, and arguments advanced, it is most humbly prayed and implored before this Honorable City Civil Court of Bengaluru that it may be pleased to judge and declare that first, the defendant is not liable for negligence, and second, the plaintiff is not entitled to damages as sought. Also pass any other order in the favor of the defendant to meet the ends of justice and good conscience. For this act of kindness, the defendant shall duty bound forever pray. Thank you, Your Lordships. Thank you, Your Lordships.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if the counsel for the plaintiff may proceed with the rebuttal.
Yes, you reserve 2 minutes now. Yes. How much time you reserve for rebuttal?
We had 3 minutes and the extension of my speaking time, Your Honor. Your Honor, the first point that needs to be pointed out is in the first issue of the counsel for the defendant, which states that fumigation of rooms was a specific obligation. However, a safe environment that is humane for the contestants' health and safety is a general obligation that the defendant must observe, and it's not a specific one. Secondly, the counsel for defendant mentioned that basic amenities were provided. Basic amenities are food, clothing, and shelter. And the purpose of basic amenities is to ensure a person's basic well-being. But it doesn't serve the purpose if the basic amenities are not conducive to a person's well-being. Hence, it cannot be said that the defendant provided basic amenity if the shelter provided was not humane. The third point is the counsel for the defendant says fumigation would have been toxic to the environment. This does not give the defendant a choice to keep the plaintiff's well-being in the back seat, Your Honor. The fourth point is, again, the defendant mentioned that the fumigation would adversely affect the contestants. This is in contradiction to the view that the doctors held in para 9 of the moot proposition, where they said they were amazed that the rooms were not fumigated to avoid such risks. The fifth point is the counsel for the defendant relies on the argument that acute laryngitis resolves within 2 weeks. However, according to the clarifications, particularly clarification number 28, the plaintiff was hospitalized for acute laryngitis for a period of 3 weeks. And according to clarifications 28, even after the 3 weeks period, she was under medical supervision and was administered medicines. Also, Your Honor, we have to know that the effect acute laryngitis had on Laura's voice is not a remote damage. It's not a remote cause. A chain of events can be established linking the defendant's negligence to the adverse effect it had on Laura's voice. Starting with the non-fumigation of the rooms by defendant, this caused bacterial infection and this induced acute laryngitis in the plaintiff. And because of this, she was not able to speak coherently. Also, under medical expenses, under the head of medical expenses, the counsel for defendant say that here we have to, they say that the sum of 10 lakh is not justified. We have to take into consideration here that the plaintiff was unable to speak coherently. We should also take into consideration that she's a singer whose livelihood solely depends on her voice, and she needs sufficient medical care to ensure her voice is not affected for her future prospects. That is all, Your Honor.
Your Lordships, the counsel has already addressed those issues, but would briefly answer the queries answer the points made by the plaintiff's counsel. That is, though she was hospitalized for 3 weeks, she was discharged after that, which shows that she had recovered to a good amount of extent, and that is why she was discharged. Otherwise, she would not have been discharged. Whereas the second point relating to non-fumigation, it is again stated that not fumigating was not the major contributor, as she could have been exposed to the general environment as well. With that, I conclude my rebuttal, Counsel Lorships.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay, thank you.
It was an honor arguing before the bench. Thank you, Your Lordship.
Thank you.